All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I've got to tell you something unusual happened over the news break. As you are all aware of the interview that we were conducting with Alma Guthrie, I canceled, I shot down, we flushed it down the toilet because we were getting nowhere. And I decided that enough was enough. I felt that the guest was just trying to pull a fast one on you, the members of the X Zone Nation, and when I asked for clarification or for evidence of what she was saying, it was basically, well, it's either you believe me or you don't. And this is when we decided to terminate the interview. Over the news break, we have received more than 700 emails from you, the members of the X Zone Nation, congratulating us on getting rid of the guest. They said, you guys have basically said, this is why we love the X Zone, because if it's crap, it doesn't sail and the person is gone. Thank you, guys. It means a lot. But this is what we do here. It's that plain, it's that simple. There goes the blood pressure again. Craig, get me my blood pressure medicine. X Zone Nation, my guest this hour is a gentleman I've had the pleasure of having on the show before. He's a good friend of the X Zone. His name is George Greene. And George majored in geophysics at Colorado School of Mines and Law and Business at the University of Illinois. He is an expert on the UFO phenomena, investigation, and making contact. He has had contact with ETs and shares their message in a book that they authored called The Handbook for the New Paradigm. George has information on how this planet began, how the so-called elite have plans for World War III, the reduction of the population, and much more. And George Greene, it's nice to talk to a sensible person. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you.
George, these are crazy days. We had you on a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, whenever you're on, time just flies so fast. So I'm glad you've decided to come back again and join us so that we can further discuss the current world financial picture, you know, the plan of the elite, and an overview of Planet Friends. So let's start with the world financial picture. Let me ask you something as a financial person yourself. What do you think of Donald Trump running for president?
Well, actually, he's doing a good job making people start to think.
Exactly.
And that's what you look at.
Yeah.
From the financial, he's played the game, so he knows how to accumulate the money. But the problem with what we're looking at in our country is understanding how the corruptness has gone into our so-called politics, as you know. Yeah. Politics is two words. Poly means many, and ticks are bloodsuckers. and I use that only because I used to run around with them, and the only way they could stay in office is obviously for somebody to finance them, to put them into office. And the people behind the scenes that do the financing are the ones that really control our country. And that's the big message I think he's trying to get out, except for nobody's controlling him at this minute because he's out there. So we have to watch the play unwrap for everybody to make their discernment as we go down. The problem I see with Helix, when he's getting there, when you get to the top, you have to understand it's a big anthill, and the anthill's been there for a long time, and these guys are going to try to keep their own tunnels going and everything else. And just because he's on the top, how do you get rid of government employees?
Well, you've got an example with President Kennedy, President Lincoln,
Well, you have some of them, but you have to remember Kennedy himself was part of his family was mafia.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that end of it, And when they asked me to be the finance chairman for the next president of the United States, I ended up being in the meeting, and who was there? Ted Kennedy. Now, does that tell you anything? It's an interesting game to see how they all play, and I'm very concerned about what's going on because they're way behind schedule. And I keep watching. When I was in Beijing, China, with leaders over there, they said it was 5,000 years and it's our turn to run the world. So when they tell you about them discounting their currency this week, they don't really care because they got a couple $1 trillion of U.S. money. And we, in business, and you talk about all of one, if you're a businessman, you want to make the product as cheap as you can because that's demanded by the American people. And if they're going to buy it at the cheapest thing you can, you look around and what's the biggest thing that keeps us in problems is our crazy labor system or the unions, which mean our prices are all going up and everybody wants to make money. I'm not, I was one of them too. I was in the game.
Sure.
The problem is that you can buy people still today for $1 a day, as close as Haiti.
Wow. So when you take a look at the world financial picture these days, George, what do you see? I mean, you're right about China. We watched this happen. In fact, doesn't China own the majority of notes owed out by the United States?
Oh, that's correct. They have been they've been putting what they call our surplus money into notes behind us. So when you hear the figures that they have $1,400,000,000,000, the number's $1 trillion and everything else, people don't even know what that is. When you start looking at $1 trillion, it's 1,000 billion. And what's a billion? You have to break it down to the average person.
Right.
And they just don't understand the numbers past that. When I was involved with the group, we started talking about that. I'm sitting with the people themselves and having, the concept itself in money, because they really don't even have a definition of money. You probably are aware of that.
Yeah.
Because the state of Colorado, because I was selling money, whatever that meant, and so the Federal Reserve notified the state of Colorado, where I was from, that I had to get licensed to sell money. And I said, bring it on. I love it. I studied, as you know, law and business at University of Illinois, but also, and geophysics was my game at Colorado School of Mines. But I went to a couple other universities, and I got involved in the game of money really big. So when I got involved with the game of money, and that was selling money, that was because of my dad's business. Because I was financing our accounts receivable back from the government, which took a couple of months for us to get paid from the government. Well, the product that we were getting at that time was cattle. My dad was the third largest meat packer. When you go buy a load of cattle from the farmer, you got to pay for it in 24 hours. Then you process it and you turn around and sell it to the government and you get paid, 2 or 3 months down the line. So I would basically have my receivables and factoring that at all the different banks. And that's how I got involved into it. But then I started investigating into the bank situation. And when I found out that the banks, when I make a deposit, for instance, into the bank of $100,000, they can loan out 10 times that, or $1 million. So it's an interesting game to sit down. So what happened is, because I had borrowed the limit at all the banks, my good buddy says, get me your friends with your money. And what I did was, I call you on the phone, say, you got $10,000? I'll tell you what, you go put it in the bank, I tell you, and I don't have anything else to do about it. You deposit it, they'll pay you 5%, but I'll write you out a check for 2% in advance. So that would give you a 40% increase in yield on your money without any risk for both of us. So we were both in good shape. Well, it was great, except for the big problem came is you only put it in for 1 year into the bank, and that was my agreement. Well, if the bank asked for, I'll just give you an illustration, for $5 million.
Right.
I would put $5 million into the bank, but the bank then could loan out, because of the rules of the Federal Reserve, 10 times out, or what, $50 million?
Mm-hmm.
No, okay, so understand, if they could loan out $50 million at that time at about 7 or 8%, they would get a $4 million return on paying me, on the $5 million, $150,000. And everybody was happy at that point. The banks were happy. They had bigger deposits. Everybody looked at it. You think you were great. Yeah. The problem that came at the end of 1 year, when your certificate came up for renewal, because you're not greedy, you just had a good deal going, but you asked if you could get your 2% again from me, right? Well, if the bank wouldn't pay me, because I was getting under their advertising allowance, I was kind of I found a little niche in their thing on it. They didn't do it. I would pull the $5 million back out. I'd just tell you to go put the money in another bank. And I did this all over the country, so I became, in the inner circles because I was playing with big bucks and started running around that area.
Right.
So what happened is, again, I became so powerful I could break banks. So I got invited to the inner circle when they asked me to be the finance chairman for the next president. Well, a lot of things happened at that time, and I found out how corrupt our whole system is. And it was unbelievable. And it even includes people that are running for office today. So this is the problem that I'm trying to get across people, is what's planned. And I have to go back to when I was with the leaders in Beijing, China. They said it's 5,000 years, it's our turn to run the world. Well, the people have no idea over here how deep in debt we are. We're over, they tell you some figures we're 30 billion or 40 trillion or whatever. We're over 100 trillion in debt to foreign countries. Now, how this became about is because of a word called derivative. Do you know what a derivative is?
In a generic sense, yes, but not in a financial sense.
Well, remember what I told you? I would take your money and I put it into a bank.
Yeah.
And the bank then could loan it out and different things on it.
Yes.
Well, I moved a lot of the money out of the bank. Since the feds finally got fed up with me and they sent a letter to every bank in the United States not to do business with me, I moved all the money into the savings and loans. Now, what are savings and loans? They loan money primarily on real estate loans, right?
Okay.
In other words, it's a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year. I'm just going to show you what the problem became and what has happened. Well, if the bank, the Savings and Loans Institution, they called me and they said, George, what can we do? We need, they gave me the same deal I had with the banks. I just couldn't work directly with the banks. And the people were then guaranteed under the FSLIC, F-S-L-I-C. Well, I went over and I looked at all of their assets, and I said, the only thing I think we can do is let's pool 1,000 of your mortgages together. I'm just giving you an illustration.
Right.
Okay, if I got 1,000 mortgages, my problem is, and I'm just as an accounting standpoint, how do you determine the value of 1,000 mortgages put together? Remember, these are mortgages on houses. They're all at different dates. They have different maturity. They're different interest, all that. Well, in order for me to pool this 1,000 mortgages to just sell it to somebody, well, I flew up to my office, and I happened to be friends with guys in New York City, and I became a registered financial principal and a broker-dealer and a securities underwriter. I said, and we're having drinks in New York, and the guys in the party we had, they said, we can help you. And I said, how are you going to do that? And they say, we'll insure them. So they insured what we called my package of loans, and the insurance company was called AIG. Have you heard of them?
I sure have.
That guaranteed the loan, and that way they could sell this package. Oh, it's a derivative derived off of this package of loans.
Ah, gotcha.
And because the insurance company then they got it there, I've got a product and we can put into people to buy, i.e. people's pension funds, people's retirement funds, and foreign governments would buy it. Now, that would be a plausible thing because we were creating, because of inflation and everything else, enormous amounts of money within the country. Well, meanwhile, you're probably aware our Federal Reserve has been advancing between $30 and $50 billion every month. And a billion is $10,000, $100,000 homes, just to give you an idea of what it is. Now we come back to the period our country is such a mess that we've exported all of our companies and all of our jobs. They make, Trump, what did he say? We're screaming about Mexico because Ford Motor Company put $2.5 billion down there to manufacture vehicles. And why don't they make them up here? Again, because of labor and unions and everything. So you and I both want to buy the cheapest car we can or at the most reasonable price.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
It is.
Well, we even have, and this is the game that we have to look at on an economic basis. What am I looking at? All of these people now, we used to be able to loan the money out to foreign countries, but they're all waking up now. Switzerland is pulling out American money is no longer there. You can go on a trip to Europe, but you can't use dollars. So we have this facade that the American currency is so good, but it's nothing besides debt, and it's going to collapse. So now the next problem is, I got a couple of friends of mine. I just talked to them a little while ago that are out of country. They got $25 million. That's their loose change right now. They don't know where to put it. And, they're calling me for the same thing. Today in this world, because of the restrictions of moving money, it's a real challenge to keep ahead of the game. Now, I have the accounting book for the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. So looking into that, what do they consider real money? And that's just so you know and your listeners listening to it, their definition of real money is gold.
Yeah.
And it says right in their book, because that's what they use to trade between countries. Now, the little guy, the biggest problem we have with that, I don't care if you got the gold, and a lot of people are collecting it, is I'm not sure what we're going to end up with right now. When I sat in on the meetings, when they asked me to be the finance chairman for the next president of the United States 2 years before I became president, part of that problem that he had was we're discussing the economics is how do we keep track of everybody's money? So under the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, they put in laws right now. In case of a national emergency, you're going to go to your local bank or post office, and they're going to issue a new debit card, which will have your fingerprint, your picture, and all your medical records, which are being collected today as you and I speak, down in Kansas. Interesting, huh?
Very.
Are you aware of this?
No.
Anyway, this is all part of the game they're coming up. Well, meanwhile, we got to keep everybody diverted away from everything, like Trump. We'll get this thing all squared away. In this country, we're going to do all this. The truth is, the Soviets are about 12 years ahead of us on the nuclear program. They, of course, provided all the nuclear stuff to Iran. They have, 150 nuclear reactors over there to produce electricity, which they sell to Europe. And this is all Russian equipment. They also, at the same time, Russia provides the natural gas for Europe. So guess what's happening? Who has the power?
Russia.
Well, we're looking exactly. Now, Iran is sitting down here playing the game behind the scenes because they want to control that whole thing. But remember, at one time, we were financing them.
Yeah.
You have to look at whether they had the Shah of Iran. Wasn't he over here?
Yes, he was.
The game, yeah. Again, we're back to the game on how do we make this thing work, and how do your listeners, in other words, protect themselves in the day ahead. Well, we know that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac has been very busy all over the country loaning money. All that money then comes through one of the federal agencies, right? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. If you look at it, almost 80% of the property is mortgaged by that. So who owns your house?
The government.
Because most of the people are more... Exactly. So when this thing comes falling apart, the real problem that I had, and when I was over in Montana, they were advertising on TV to come in and man the FEMA camps. Now, I built in 22 states, shopping centers, office buildings, motels, all kinds of stuff. So I was playing the game in a big way. But I got a letter, and they asked me if I would like to build an enemy prisoner of war camp, and that's what it says right on the contract, in downtown Las Vegas. Now, that kind of, put up a red flag to me. I hope you remember Ted Gunderson. You probably had Ted on your phone,
yes.
Your station before.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Ted was one of my buddies, and we ran around together. And I gave Ted the copy of the contract, and he said, I'll get back with you in a couple of days. And they're building them all over the United States. Only they call them FEMA camps, the Federal Emergency Management. They don't call them prisoner of war camps. So it's a different name. So they're getting ready for what they have planned. That's World War III. You mentioned that before.
Yeah.
And, of course, I sat in on those meetings. And that was set up because of the other problem that I have, and I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting in here with some people, and I said our number one problem, well, Kissinger said it, the number one problem on the planet, there's too many people. We're gaining 250,000 a day, 2.5 million every 10 days. That's over death around the planet. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the resources to take care of these people, where are they? Well, when I sat in with the Plan 2000 information that I set down on reduction of the world's population, I said, no, wait a minute. This planet's a lot bigger than that. We can take care of it. And I've flown around the planet, so I've just about been everywhere.
Sure.
Well, I went to Washington, D.C., and 5 blocks north of the White House. And if you get a chance, you can go over there and check it out. It's called World Watch Association. It used to be called the Population Institute. And it's funded by all the major corporations. It's also on the Internet. It's funded by all the major corporations, and they're keeping track of everything on the planet, i.e. the water, the mineral resources, everything that's happening, including the weather, which we have been messing up with. So how the whole game is setting up there, how many people can this planet really take? Well, according to the information under the Plan 2000 and the Georgia Guidestones, which you probably had people on before talking about, 500 million is the goal. 500 million. Well, the meetings I sat in on, and I don't want to get people alarmed, but they're only expecting 20 million Americans to be left alive. Now, you got to have some questions about this. Pardon?
That's it, 20 million?
Well, in the United States.
And
500 million on the planet. Now,
how are they going to do this?
When I start talking about, well, the plan is to reduce the population. Again, I got all the details. I mean, every congressman in the Senate got them, and I was sitting in on the meetings on it. To reduce the population, quote, by all means necessary. The things that got my attention was the neutron bombs. Now, at that time, remember we had the dirty bombs, remember the old stuff? Well, you remember the fat man and thin man. People don't realize who made those bombs in the first place. Do you think we made them?
Well, if you listen to the propaganda, yes.
They were German bombs. The first nuclear explosion actually was 1908 in Tunguska, Siberia. Interesting. You probably have people that know the whole history about that, but fortunately I made enough money and I could fly anywhere I went to the world. I went to find out as much as I could. Tunguska is still radioactive from that crazy deal, and that was an explosion from theory. The Germans did that. Well, the theory was if they exploded there, they could flip the planet on its axis prematurely. I'm sure you're having guests talk about the coming Earth flipping off Earth like it's doing. Yeah, well, that's coming up. It's all calculated based on this thing, frankly, in the next 15, 20 years here, as you probably know. I don't have the exact dates, and none of us do. But I do know, because of what we've done to the planet, I was just at the Panama Canal, and buddy, the temperature of the ocean down there was 5 degrees warmer than normal.
Wow.
Now, what does that mean? 2/3 of the world's surface is what? Water?
Yep.
And what's happening to the warm water as it expands? Where is it going? To both of the poles. And what's happening at the poles? They're all melting, right?
Yep.
Exactly. What are they calculating for the next 20 years in the United States? When we talk about the future, because people, their memory is about, or their thought process are, can I make it to the end of the year? Well, can't look ahead too far. You understand that whole game. Anyway, these are things to look forward to, and your program and other people's program that are out here talking about some of this stuff try to go in a definitively give the people information so they can get an overview. And I tell people, you can listen to what I have to say, but there's plenty of documentation to back it up. But will you get out of your chair, or will you get on and listen to it and go find out?
Yeah.
Because everything I'm telling you is somewhere in this world.
Well, what I see happening, George, is that the ice caps are melting and the water levels the oceans are going to rise. The oceans rise. That's right. You've got major flooding. That's right. That's going to happen. And they're expecting on both of the coasts of the United States, the water, well, Florida's going to be all underwater. And then you got the East Coast as much as 8 foot. They're actually talking about building walls around New York City, as you're probably aware, up another 8 feet. Yeah, because New York is... Well, you're aware. Well, I was there. I was partners with the guys that own Studio 54. Remember that game? Sure do, yeah. So I'm just... I'm just telling you what happened. I had a couple of yachts that I used in the Caribbean, and we'd bring it up to the city during the summertime. Well, I'm sitting here looking at all of that, and of course that, to me, when I got up there and look at the game of the stock market, and as an underwriter, most people don't realize that like me as an underwriter, you would come to me and you want to go public. Mm-hmm. I would go ahead and
analyze your company and decide to go, put stocks together, and we'd issue so much. Now we need the public, so we go out there and they promote the public to go buy a stock. Well, the biggest problem with that is that I got to have other people that go out and sell it. So you have a lot of brokers across the country that they love what they call IPO, or initial public offering. I'm explaining a little bit on how the market and how corrupt it is today.
Okay, great.
Anyway, well, basically what happened is I go ahead and I issue the stock, and my other brokers call all their other friends, and I got this new thing to go into. So they go ahead and they buy the stock, and everybody's trading on a piece of paper based on what? Greed, obviously, or putting money away into it. Well, what had happened is during this period of time, I had several companies that I had created, if you want to, in conjunction. They weren't my companies. I was just the underwriter. Well, one of the problems as the underwriter, it's not a problem, is I always have to maintain a market. In other words, you bought some stock, you want to sell it, right? I have to have somebody back here to buy it. Well, I don't know if you remember when our stock market dropped 20% in one day. That was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Well, when it dropped, of course, I was a little upset about that because I knew what the companies were really worth, and of course I put myself in a position, if I'm going to be, everybody dumped them all of a sudden, then I'm going to have to buy them back, right? Well, the next morning, the very next morning, I got a letter from the Federal Reserve said that they would loan me all the money to maintain the market. Now, you remember, normally you have a banker's line, so you can go down to a bank and borrow what you need to cover anything if you don't have the assets to do that. That's just kind of you and I would do the same thing. How do we cover ourselves? Well, here's the problem that came in. I started analyzing this thing, and I said, this doesn't make sense. Why would the Federal Reserve advance money to do that? So I called my other broker. Denver was the heart of the penny markets at that time, and that's where I had my firm. Anyway, I called my other buddies, and we got together for coffee, and I said, the way I analyze this thing, the American public, if this market continues, and that 20% was just one day, and I knew what the company was worth. Hell, I underwrote it. I knew exactly what it was. Well, anyway, I says, I'm not going to be part of this game. So myself and 5 other firms shut down that following week.
Wow.
The following Monday, the Federal Reserve put 8 members on the floor of the stock exchange today. They call them the Plunge Protection Team. So guess what that does? If the market starts to drop, the feds themselves can buy or sell, 100 shares of stock will determine the price of the other million shares or so that are outstanding.
Oh, my gosh. So
are you seeing the picture what I'm trying to explain to you?
It's a basic
your listeners?
It's a basic takeover of the financial world.
Well, it's even worse than that. As we started going out, we had people, and back in the old days, you have to understand I'm a little older, I'm getting a little wiser. Back in the days, I'm always trying to help my people. Everybody came to me, I was building, being partners with people. We'd build shopping centers and office buildings, all this kind of stuff. Well, the other game was most people don't have the money, and they needed to figure out a way, because Social Security, if you really calculate it, there's no way it can sustain itself because of the wild card. You know what the wild card is in the game that we play around with money?
No.
Inflation. How do you determine what your dollar is going to be worth, and who calculates it? Can you tell me when you go to the store what the price is for food last year compared to today?
It was a lot cheaper last year than it was today. That's all I can tell you.
I'm just giving you some. I want you and your listeners to think about this. Has it gone up 20%? Seriously, it's gone more than that in the one we call the food end of it. But they don't include that in their calculations of the advances because they want the Federal Reserve to keep loaning the money like they've been, but they've agreed now to supposedly stop it. Because theoretically, the money we collect on taxes would cover all that. The truth is, not one dime in income tax paid in the United States goes to run our country. It goes to interest to the Federal Reserve. And who is the Federal Reserve? A private organization. And people don't even recognize that. Now, I'm trying to explain the game of money to you and your listeners real simple. And the problem is that you take this piece of paper and it says Federal Reserve and note. None of it's right. There's no federal, there's no reserve, and it's just a note. And that's just a piece of paper, so long as you and I agree to do it. Now, we convince you that if you put your Federal Reserve note in this fund we put together,
right,
and they call it a retirement account, whatever name they want to put on it, hell, I helped design them. So when I looked at it, because I was trying to get things that would offset the inflation, because that's the wild card. There's no way I could do that. So we do that by put your money into stocks, and that's your pension fund. And where's the stocks controlled? Between other people buying it. And if you look at it today, it's unbelievable. There's 60-some% of the stock market today is all in pension funds. Pension funds have no voting rights. So now you come back to who controls the voting rights? Well, the Rockefeller Foundation owns about 4% of the stock exchange, of all the stocks. One company basically can control all the voting rights. Interesting, huh?
Very.
Now you're asking me what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, the plan is, of course, to collapse the United States. They want to get World War III started, and that's to begin, and that was the original plans, was to hit Israel with a nuke, and that would begin World War III. Well, everybody's telling you not to do that. Well, who's telling you? Most of the people in New York City, which is the money center again, based on this big monopoly game that they put out throughout the world. And then today, frankly, I don't know what to tell people to do with money, because all the ones that I do talk to with people, I mean, I get them. Well, I'll give you an idea. Sunshine Mining, Sunshine Mint, is only about $5 from my office.
Right.
And they've been making the American Eagle, the dollar, the silver piece, and they also do their stuff on it. I have an order in there right now for 10,000 ounces of silver that 3 weeks ago, and they were supposed to deliver it today. You know when I ordered how much they gave me?
No.
2 boxes. That was only 1,000 of them. They're so far behind because of the price of silver so low, and they can't mine. I'm right here in an area where there's a lot of silver mines. They've shut them all down. We have to import the silver from some other places. So the U.S. Treasury, in the last 3 months now, has notified they're not going to make available to the public any more of the dollar coins, the silver ones. So this whole thing right in front of you, you can see what happens. So they want to keep people putting their money into the stock market, which is being rigged. It's a total rigged game. It's a terrible monopoly game. Just remember, somebody else owns the game. So now we have to sit down. My best thing looking at people is make sure they get food and have some way to get away from major cities, because the plan 2000, again, you can read it on the Georgia Guidestones, is to reduce the world's population to 500 million. I sat in on the meetings. They went down, and all the major cities here, there are 2 things they discussed, and that was using neutron bombs on the major cities. And they're already made. I mean, the Soviets have 3 nuclear submarines on the West Coast, 3 on the East Coast, and there's even 2 in the Gulf. I was just down in New Orleans lecturing, and one of them was one in the fishing. Now, these are 2 football fields in length and 5 stories tall. They go 80 miles an hour underneath the water. I mean, people can look it up, and you can see pictures on them on the Internet. Yeah, and tell me, all of our military equipment, I have friends that make parts for our ships. In other words, when the engine breaks down, where do you get your spare part?
Mm-hmm.
Most of our ships are 20 to 30 years old.
Yeah, but they're coming out with the new ones.
Does that make you think?
It does, but aren't they coming out with new ships? Aren't they starting to refurbish?
They're planning on them, but how long did it take them to get them out of the ground? And there's like Obama, when he was in China, you know what they told him? You don't know how many nuclear bombs we have. Interesting, huh?
Tell me, I was speaking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they said putting Obama in as president was an experiment that went wrong. Well,
it has not gone wrong yet, because World War III is supposed to begin any time now, so they could get it going. According to rules, in case if we have World War III going, he's going to call a national emergency. And as such, he's president for another 30 days after that. Then it comes under another board that takes over everything.
Really?
So it's not Yeah, it's not finished yet. We have a year and a half before his thing goes out. Well, we may have some election. You're going to have to watch it as a big play and say, okay, I want to see what they're doing on the game of politics right now. Well, we got two people there who are really not politicians. We are invested in, Greene and Trump are out here in the business world playing around and running around on the high end of the stream. Well, you go around to the rest of, I say with the presidents of all of Latin America in Costa Rica. I was the only American there. Mm-hmm. They all are aware of what's going on. It's the American people that are asleep. It's the old game. Get everybody interested in sports and entertainment as they take over the planet. And that's basically what's happening.
Is there a way to turn it around, George, or has it gone past the fail point?
Well, just a couple of months ago, as you know, when I got involved with Billy Meyer, it opened up a Pandora's box because I became, in direct contact. And what happened during this thing, a couple of months ago, I got a big warning. It says there's too few of the people awakening on the planet to make any significant difference. And they're urging us to get together with other people of like minds to support each other in the days ahead. And we are not going to stop World War III. That's going to go. And according to them, it's going to last about 3 years and 4 months or something. I don't have the dating. I don't have the time on anything. They're just telling me the events that are going to be occurring as they're monitoring everything. If we knew what time is, and because we keep changing that. Even North Korea just, or whatever it was, somebody's changing. They're changing time, right?
Yeah, they have their own time zone now.
We do too. What happens every 4 years? We have daylight savings. We got to save a quarter of a time. We also have the planet shifting on its axis, as you know right now, 14 degrees, isn't it? Off of what it's from the North Pole. So all these things are happening, but you don't put together the pieces. You can't. The average guy, he goes to school, he learns how to do whatever he's doing. He's, gets involved in the attorneys even. They're a bunch of crooks at this point. I studied law. Right now, it's kind of just shuffling papers between each other, and we go down, and they make a lot of money for shuffling papers.
Okay, speaking,
and almost all of our congressmen are lawyers.
Speaking about lawyers and law, Hillary Clinton. Okay, her email server was taken by the FBI. Is this going to be a big disaster for the Clintons?
No, I don't. Well, I don't know if she's going to make it because this is that and the other stuff that she had, because she covered up so much stuff or would not testify on anything.
Benghazi,
that's all coming out. Yeah, on Benghazi and the rest of the things. Secretary of State, she was doing a lot of stuff. But that was part of the, quote, privileges of doing all that stuff. And the Clintons were involved. Look how much money they controlled on their pension fund and everything else. I was down in Haiti. Remember when all that happened down there? I'm down there, and, of course, they're going to come in, and there hasn't been any money spent in Haiti. Millions of dollars went down there. It isn't any different.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a few things over there. Do you think they're doing anything? No. It's a game of again, power and just corruption. When the people, if they really want it, another good friend of mine, Jerry Ziefman. Now you ever heard of him? He passed away a little bit ago. Jerry was the chief prosecutor for the impeachment of Nixon. Hillary worked for him, and he said, "I fired her ass."
Really?
And he wrote a book about it, Without Honor, and it put it in the Library of Congress so they couldn't destroy her because she's just so bad. Now, you have to remember, both of the Clintons were attorneys. They're not attorneys now. That's like the guy saying, well, I'm the, being the president, they're in charge of everything. They're not in charge of the military at all until Congress declares war. Have they declared war yet?
Nope. Well, not to my knowledge.
How can they be
Then how can they be in charge of the military if the war hasn't been declared by Congress?
That's right.
Yeah.
But see, people don't think about that because they're led this play.
So why hasn't this picture? Why hasn't the light bulb turned on? with those who have the ability to make the changes? Is the entire system run by a puppet master?
Frankly, I sat in on a meeting, when we were talking about the population reduction, and I'll never forget the day because it changed my whole mind. The people I was running with, we really put people into office like governors and senators in Congress because they got the money behind them. And how do you think these guys get there, right? Anyway, I'm sitting on the meeting on this thing, and I'll just give you rough numbers. There was a dozen of us, and half of us adjourned for lunch. And one group went to one place. I guess we had Chinese food, and the other one went someplace else. But I'm sitting with the group that was really powerful. Anyway, they were talking about getting rid of people on the other side. And then this is part of the population reduction. Now, they all think that they're going to be, saved, and they're going to be all there because they're up at the top. And I know what the game plan is. The problem is, I don't think they don't know who's going to be in the winner and who's going to be on top. Because we got different games that other people going over there. When I sat in Beijing and they told me, look, it's 5,000 years, it's our turn to run the world. I said, but we only got 300 million people here. You don't know what 1,400,000,000 people are until you walk over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. What you said, you have to walk among them and then see how much they've advanced so much. But they're making everything that we have. And sure, they've been doing it, like even Trump says, on the dollars that we gave them in the first place. But they're smart enough, so they've been buying all of our stuff. So they have, they're buying all the major cities, all the shopping centers, the big buildings down in New York City, every place else. They'll have all of that. Meanwhile, we got the world changing because of the weather modifications that we've been doing, changing all the things around, and we just have a different world to play with. Now, how are we going to get out of it? We're not. This is not going to go away. We don't have any magic thing that's going to make everybody turn around. Because, and I was sitting today talking to a state representative. I mean, we were just sitting there joking, and he says, it's too late. He's even admitting. And he says, where am I? And I asked him where he's going. He said, well, I'm going up to Canada. And I said, well, that's fine. My son happens to be a senior engineer with a small company called Bechtel. And he spent 3.5 years in the secret cities in Russia, and he comes back and he says, they're 12 years ahead of us, Dad. And he says, you watch them shut down NASA because they're way ahead in the space program. Yeah. Remember when we were sending up the stuff and the Russians sent up bring up supplies?
Yep.
People, they don't put it together. Well, anyway, Russia's way ahead of us on all of those games, and we purposely put our military down, and we don't take care of them, as Trump is talking about, all the military. And, I spent over 4 years in the service myself. Big deal. We believed in what our country was doing and what the people could tell us they were going to do. We got to have this stuff to save us. Well, that isn't the way it's set up right now. Right now, on the world basis, they got to reduce the world population, and by their own words, by all means necessary. What they found out was cheaper was biological. Now, how many of your guests have you talked about biological materials on foods that we're eating?
I've had quite a few.
So what happens is that they learned how to make money while they're killing us off.
Yeah. GMOs.
That's right.
And then the forced vaccinations.
That's just part of it.
And then the forced vaccinations that you really don't need. Big Pharma is involved with it. That's
right. And now you have the problems on the West Coast. There's no water.
Yep.
You go in and you get the same thing in go to Texas or down to the whole Southwest as a drought. All of California is the same way. California is so upside down, it's unbelievable. There's nothing that's going out there. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to the American people come this fall because we're still importing, if we're doing this stuff, up from Mexico and South America. But they're having the same problems, too. They're having weather changes and the whole works happening to that area. I mean, there's other countries. I have property in Ecuador where there's Ford and Chevy. They make Fords and Chevys down in Ecuador. Isn't that interesting?
When
you go to different places. Yeah.
When did all this start, George? Was it after World War II? Is this when it went from we the people to I the person?
I think it was probably, if you look at it, the United States has become a military-industrial complex, as they such. In World War II, after World War I, they started looking at it. Look at how much money can they make by selling weapons and arms and all the rest of it.
Right.
So it's been going on for a long time. We don't have an exact date. I mean, Jimmy Carter, he put, and that's when I was asked to be his finance chairman. And he put in the writing that all the senators got called the Plan 2000. Well, that was to get the world started in the Middle East in 2000. Well, what was Iraq? It was to get World War III started. Of course, they didn't go along with the plan. You know, you can have plans. That doesn't mean you're going to get them through.
That's right.
So that's the game that you and I have to be aware of and try to. And I'm lecturing all over the crazy world. I mean, frankly, every place I can to get people that are willing to look at a picture. When I bring in a bigger picture, in other words, what's happening from the extraterrestrial crowd, fortunately, I have pictures and evidence, and like the little handbook that I talked to, that people can get, by the way, they can download it free on my website, nohoax.com. But that's written by the extraterrestrials, and there's 3 of them up there. It basically gives you the ability to understand what's going on and may possibly change your immediately self. In fact, they're telling us to get together with groups of 3 or 4, 7, no more than 11. More than that, you get problems. But they go into discussions on who and what we are, where we come from, and what's coming up, and they're very concerned because, frankly, there's a group of ETs that are clapping and hoping we're going to destroy ourselves. And I'm in the group that want to save some people and have us as a planet.
That's where I'd like to be, and this is why I love having people like you on the show so that we can get the message out there. And the message has got to get out there, and people have to start putting on their thinking caps and stop being so bloody mundane. Get away from in front of your TV set. Get your head out of the ground, for God's sake. Look what's going on around the world. People, I think, George, are expecting ETs to come down and save us all. Well, you know what? It's not going to happen.
Well, you know what they tell me? They said if we come down and took you, we would trash their planet in half the time because we know how to do it now.
It's scary.
Well, it's scary, but don't get scared. Get prepared. So that's what the idea is. Me coming on the radio station with you. So I try to get across to people the game of Monopoly that we're playing right now, and I try to give you enough details. I got a lot more I could go into, but the idea is so you can get an idea. Wait a minute, we're playing this game of Monopoly. When are they going to stop the Monopoly game? Well, they've already told you. They're going to have a national emergency. You're going to have to register. 94% of all money today in the United States is digits. Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
In other words, it's credit cards or checks or whatever, and that's the way they set it up.
George,
all your digits you're getting, or that's how they are. Well, the digits is what the whole new world's going to be about. It won't be anything that you're going to have a trade. You're going to have your card, and then you're going to be mobilized into groups, almost all set up again. This is why they practiced it before, by your talents that you have. And that's what they're looking at.
Was it you who was telling me that... I lost what I was going to say. Well, it wasn't the onset of the digital money, the debit cards, credit cards, and don't they want us to be so in debt that we can't get out of debt because this is another method of control?
Well, it's another method of doing it. That's exactly correct. Because there were, people were saving. They were they were doing all kinds of stuff. Well, then by creating this so-called debt thing, you can have it on a credit card. You can buy this new car for $99 a month. I learned a big lesson. And my ex-father-in-law was the comptroller of a small company called General Motors.
Oh, a very small company. Yeah, I've heard of it.
Anyway, he was there at the very beginning. He said, we were discussing money at that time. He said, I was here when we used to kite checks with U.S. Steel to stay alive.
Wow.
Interesting, huh? Well, people don't even know what kite means, but we had a float between banks. Well, you don't have any of that anymore.
No, it's all instantaneous.
Right now, it's It's instant. Yeah, it is, except for if the bank wants to hold the funds for 3 or 4 days, and every day, because on a world basis. You understand there's an immense amount of money out there, and it costs just to carry it, the paperwork.
Yeah.
You look at the Federal Reserve. How many Federal Reserve buildings do we have across the United States?
I have no idea. Really?
Remember, these are all private. Yeah. Well, you know, what is funny, and I think it's funny. You go to Washington D.C. and you get south of the White House. You go across the street. And you're looking at the White House, you know, they got all the guards and everything. But you look at the next building to the left. I mean, the little building, of course, is the West Wing. But you go, the next whole block is the Federal Reserve. That's a private bank. If it doesn't put together, you and I are talking about it now, people can say, oh, my gosh, it is a private bank. That's controlling the other building, the White House. The next building, the whole next block, is the Internal Revenue Service, which is a collection agency for the Federal Reserve. So now you go back to the next one. Mm-hmm. What's the next? The whole next block is the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's an investigator. It has no ability to have summons on people or anything else. It has to go to the local offices, to the sheriff and stuff to do things. They can't arrest people. And yet they make movies on this to give you the idea that FBI can do things. Interesting, huh?
Very.
But that's in Washington D.C. And then I tell people go on about 5 blocks north, and there's a tall building. It's on about 5 stories, but that's the World Watch Association keeping track of all the goods and services that are being transferred by everything, and the water, the air, and the whole works,
right. And
start analyzing it. And I love to look at all of that. When I got to it, I was totally floored because there's no way we can sustain the planet with the population that we have right now. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't go for another day or two, but how many people are dying every day, from no food when they tell you that, 25% of the world's existing on less than $2 a day? Well, go find out for yourself. Take yourself a trip down to Haiti and go see how it really is. Or the Dominican Republic. Or what other? Go to Puerto Rico where they just filed bankruptcy, right?
Yep. George, we've got about 2 minutes left. You're going to be coming on in the show a couple of weeks because we have so much more to talk about. And X Zone Nation, I deliberately put all the commercials aside this hour because George's message is very important. And I hope that we've been able to wake a couple of people up tonight, George. That's why you and I have to keep doing this, to make sure we get as many people awake as we can. But quickly, the Iran nuclear deal. What's your take?
Oh, the take on Iran? Oh, they've already got them. Russia's already provided all the stuff there. It's a big lie. It's another way for us to give away to keep the idea floating that we're going to be doing so much. These guys are so corrupt. I'm talking about our guys. Iran already, they're smart. They know what the hell's happening over there. You go talk. I was with one of our one of our friends in Los Angeles from Iran, and he was one of the big people over there. No, if you went to Iran, they got shopping centers and office buildings and everything just like we do. Everybody keeps looking like it's a nowhere land. It's not true. Pull it up. They got everything going. They want to keep the thing running the way it is because we keep giving it away. By doing what they're talking about publicly, then they don't have to tell the world that Russia's already come in and given them all the reactors. Look it up. It's on, it is. They will tell you how many reactors they have already. And you think, and they've already admitting to have the stuff, but Russia's already provided them with the nuclear stuff that they need.
Hey, George, time is coming. We've got to say so long, my friend. Quickly, give our listeners your website.
NoHoax, NoHoax.com.
All right, can we look forward to having you back in 2 weeks?
Sure, just give me a call back and have your listeners read the Handbook for the New Paradigm, a free download.
I will, George,
on my website.
George, take care of yourself. Thanks very much for joining us, my friend.
Thanks for having me, sir.
It's always a great pleasure. www.nohoax.com. Well, that's it for tonight. I'll be back Monday night at 8 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. So for everyone here at the X Zone and Starcom Radio Network, remember, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.
Have to go home, but you can't stay.